it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
Good morning, Conrad. How are you, buddy? You look good. You look healthy. You're on the lake.
I am, yeah. It's a good
living
morning.
the life.
I don't know about that. I'm trying. I'm doing my best. I want to be like you when I grow up, JR.
Oh, God. Set your goals higher, will you?
Well, man, I'm so delighted to catch up with you this morning, and thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of Grilling JR. Our plan today was to talk about Gold Dust and pick up where we left off, but JR and I had such a good time catching up this morning. We thought, you know what? We're going to call an audible. So we'll be picking up our story about Gold Dust next week here on the program. But we wanted to just talk about what's going on in professional wrestling right now, because it does feel like every time you turn around, there's another headline. There's something else to talk about. So we're going to keep it current and talk a little current event today. And as you and I are recording on a Wednesday morning, last night on NXT, we saw Frankie Kazarian and Joe Hendry, who's gotten quite a bit of buzz. You know, he actually made the Billboard charts across the pond. And I'm curious, what do you think of Joe Hendry's debut in NXT and this big WWE NXT crossover? I think this is catching a lot of people by surprise.
Yeah, it is surprising, pleasantly so. I think getting more guys involved and getting more TV time for multiple people is good. I've called some of Joe Hendry's matches back in the day. He's a good talent. And it's good that he's got a very solid job, because he's got the potential to do really well. I watched a little bit of NXT. Wednesday night's a heavy, or Tuesday is a heavy wrestling day.
It is, yeah.
So I was thoroughly enjoyed the shows I sampled, and I watched what Killed WCW, the question that has no answer in my view. So anyway, it was good. Joe Hendry does a good talent. They've done a nice job there. Pro Down Boy, meaning the NXT people, talent-wise. They got a good eye for talent, and they're getting people that aren't body Donnas. No offense to the late Chris Candido, but they've done a good job of recruiting and signing some workers, some talents that know how to get it done in the ring, and I think that's extremely important. And I'm impressed by their roster. It's pretty diverse. You see some green spots, but you see that with everybody.
That's right.
Because people try to work too fast, and the faster you work, you forget things like how to throw a good punch. It's just bam, 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 and some of those bams are weak, and so all they got to do is slow down a little bit,
right?
Lay their stuff in, and it looks better, feels better, is better. So anyway, I think Joe's got a break there. They got a big break, so I hope he takes advantage of it.
It's pretty exciting to see what's possible with this crossover. I mean, not too terribly long ago, it felt like, you know, that was just never possible. I wanted to ask you about that. Like, you were with Vince for a long, long time, and I'm sure it came up on more than one occasion. And I know every now and again we would see Jim Cornette bring some fellows from Smoky Mountain over, and certainly we would send some talent down to Memphis to work with Jarrett and Lawler. And then, of course, in the late 90s, we saw a little bit of a crossover with ECW. Was there ever, I mean, do you recall there being a time where it was seriously discussed, we should do something with TNA? I mean, I know there were those one-offs where, you know, Christian and Flair did a little talent exchange for the Hall of Fame and that sort of thing. But do you recall there being a line in the sand like, no, we're not doing that, stop bringing it up? Or were those discussions ever even broached?
Not really, to be honest with you. And I don't know if for any particular reason. I don't think so. I thought that, you know, we kind of try to help people out. And obviously the biggest help was to ECW.
Right.
Because they were in a cash flow issue, and not a good one. And they had a lot of good talents who were hungry and wanted to get the WWE experience. So, no, I think I think it worked out the way that it should have in the end, because there's a certain group of talents there, like the Dudleys and others, that got a break and they got hired, and I think that was pretty cool. That were certainly deserving, and they were good talents. They were skilled. So I don't think we ever had any elongated discussions about things like that. We had discussions, but primarily the discussions concerned, Conrad, uh, uh, the fact that we're looking for talent. So the reason that we had the discussions was to continue to lay the foundation to bring new talents in and create some new faces, and we did that successfully.
I know that Vince was always big on owning IP, which is why we
Right,
would see a lot of established wrestlers come in and they had their name and act and character presented a certain way. And then Vince would often want to change their name and just own that likeness. And I understand that.
yeah.
But I am curious, like when you first went to work with Vince before WCW had their explosion in '96 with the combination of Nitro and the NWO, was it ever discussed? I mean, well, we saw it in all the after magazines, these fantasy bookings of what if this WWF superstar wrestled this WCW champion sort of thing. Was that ever discussed that you can recall? Some sort
N-
of crossover opportunity with WCW?
Not to any extent. It's just they were the enemy. They did. We didn't feel like they would be motivated to participate, cooperate. They had their own thing going on. So no, not really. You'd think that at some point in time it would have been, and maybe it would have been good if it happened. But I don't recall any extended conversations or planning periods to talk about it.
I just find it interesting that, it did happen with smaller promotions. Like, as we're talking through this, I remember there was an NWA presence in 1998. Now, granted, it wasn't presented highline. I mean, it was just lost and forgotten about somewhere in the middle of the card. But I wanted to know, like, since you've seen, obviously Vince is no longer there, and it does seem this new regime is more open to the idea. I mean, we just saw this past week where it was announced that AJ Styles is actually going to be working a match for Noah, a promotion over in Japan.
All right.
And as
Yeah.
you and I are recording just last night, we saw even more TNA talent show up at an NXT show. I guess I'm curious, since we know that things are changing. I mean, AJ, even last week on SmackDown, referenced New Japan Pro Wrestling. He said the words Ring of Honor on Fox. I mean, that probably wouldn't have happened just a handful of years ago.
Right.
Could you see a scenario where WWE and AEW have some sort of crossover?
It's hard to see it, but nothing's impossible apparently. Uh, but it's something I can't fathom right now. I can't fathom it right now. I can't see. Uh, I think WWE will take in boarders and renters for their space, but to keep them permanently might be a stretch. But I think it's a good idea. The wrestling fans, I've said this before on our show here, they like new, they like change, they like surprises. And there's not too many great talents that are working. You got to, wherever you can find them, and they're willing to, who's not willing to come to WWE or AEW because the work is steady and the pay is good, and they know they're getting paid. So, but I don't know. I don't think that I don't see extended partnerships. But and I hope I'm wrong, because I think it's good for wrestling when you got new talent in and they're getting an opportunity. They're motivated, they're skilled. It's good stuff. So I'm glad I'm enjoying the current climate, Conrad, of pro wrestling. I like the fact these guys are getting a shot to become stars, bigger stars, and develop their game and give them hope that there's bigger money down the road if they deliver. And at least I hope so. At least I hope so. It's the same thing, I'm for the wrestling community. And so I want I want these guys to get every opportunity they can to become stars. And when you become a star, you get the opportunity to work more and earn more money. And at the bottom, at the end of the day, quite frankly, without being crass or coarse, that's the bottom line: earning money.
I wanted to also mention to you that there's been a sentiment that I've seen online a lot from a lot of the internet wrestling community where they think that, hey, this partnership, if you will, if you really want to call it that, this working agreement, we'll call it
Mhm.
that, with TNA and WWE could result in TNA being bought out by WWE. And Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com says, I'm confused as to what really leads people to believe this. WWE hasn't been in the tape library acquisition mode in years and largely did it to build a library for the network. UFC bought WFA, Pride, Strikeforce, WEC, IFL, but that was all before Endeavor. And Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics quote tweeted that and said, if part of what's motivating WWE's cooperation with TNA, NOAH, and reported interest in a Mexican partner is mitigating TKO's antitrust risk, which is demonstrated by the MLW settlement and UFC class action suit, buying the number 3 domestic wrestling company would certainly go against that. And I think that's a piece that a lot of people overlook. I don't think it's a huge secret that WWE had a huge, several, I mean, multi million dollar settlement with MLW at the end of last year. It makes it hard for us to imagine them buying TNA if they're trying to defend themselves in an antitrust suit. That's big business. That's big money. I could see them doing more of this and maybe just to further prove that they're not really a monopoly. What do you make of that?
Well, if you can protect yourself being accused of being a monopoly, that's good.
Yeah.
Uh, and it gets you some new talent. But there's not any of those talents that they're working with that wouldn't want to work there full time. It's just WWE is the mountain for a lot of those guys that are on smaller promotions or they're independent guys. It's the holy grail in that respect. And AEW is another great option for these guys. Think about it this way: AEW's got multiple television shows on viable networks. They have a very wrestler friendly schedule. I think we could all agree on that. The guys are not getting worked to death. They're not being treated like circus animals, as Bret Hart used to say. And they got that's a great schedule. And it's hard to recruit against working where you're doing 2 primetime television shows a week, as they are on Dynamite and Collision. So it's always, as you're a booker, you're always looking for talented new. And it's like Vince's old deal of JR, I want you to go out and hire athletic tens with the women. They got to be athletic. They got to be able to put their feet one foot in front of the other. They got to be coordinated, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the formula. Athletic, athletic new is good. And there's a lot of good talent out there that just has either been discovered or exploited, quite frankly. So, I'm again, the more talents that are given the opportunity to get on a bigger stage than they're currently in, to me, is a good thing. And I think, and Tony Khan's done a good job of building his roster. I mean, AEW's roster with the acquisition of Mercedes Monet and Okada, they're loaded.
Yeah.
They got great stars, and I'm not gonna. The storytelling's the storytelling. Either you like it or you don't like it, but there's the bodies are there that can execute the game plan, and I think that's really important. So Tony Khan's relationship with these talents with a New Japan background or some sort of contact with that group is smart, because all those acquisitions, those the couple that I mentioned, just make the roster stronger, quite frankly. and I think they've had a good, solid rapport going forward, and looks good. I enjoy, I'm gonna do some commentary on the next pay per view for, excuse me, for AEW, and I'm looking forward to it because there's always great matchups, and talents get the opportunity to stand out, to be stars, and that's what everybody's looking for. They want their break. They want to break through with a great match, steal the show, so to speak, and rock and roll. So, but that's the same thing for everybody. I think that's everybody's looking for their chance to break through and to impress people, and that's what both companies are doing right now. I didn't see the WWE event in, where was that, Scotland?
Yeah,
I didn't see
Clash
that.
at the Castle. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I didn't see that. So, and not, I wasn't boycotting. I just, other things are on my calendar, I guess. So, but in any event, pardon me, I'm a big fan of getting providing opportunities to get talents more work. And that's really important for me as an individual, as a wrestling fan, to see these guys get the chance to quote unquote live their dream. Everybody wants to live their dream. You want to live your dream where you are down there on the lake, and I want to live my dream. I want to be healthy and all that good stuff. So it's all, it's just, everybody's got a plan. Everybody's got a plan. And at the end of the day, unless you're just a cynical bastard, you want the plan to be positive at the end of the day.
Well, and we're positive that Forbidden Door is coming right on time next weekend. If you haven't already, pick up your tickets now, AEWTIX.com. JR is going to be there, and you should too. If for some reason you can't make it, well, we understand that if you can't make it to New York. So what you could do is just order the pay-per-view. That's what I'll be doing. And I
There
can't
you
wait
go.
to see Swerve Strickland defending his title against Will Ospreay in the main event. We're going to have a ladder match for the vacant AEW TNT Championship. We got Takeshita taking on Mark Briscoe and Jack Perry and Dante Martin. And as we're recording this, still two more participants to be determined. Maybe you learned who that was last night on Dynamite. Mercedes Moné will be defending her title and actually challenging for the New Japan Strong Women's title.
She's been, by the way, excuse me, she's been impressive. It took a while to get her in the ring.
Yes.
As a creative went along. But she's, I don't want to say she's better than I thought she was, but maybe she's better than I thought she was.
Well,
What I've seen has been impressive. She's very athletic, tough little gal, and she's got a great look. And that was a good hire by Tony. I think she has strengthened the female side of the roster, in my opinion. Unique look, athletic, does a nice job. Really nice job. So she's a great addition to the roster, in my opinion. So nonetheless, and then you add the Ospreys, who's new. He's one of the top wrestlers in the world.
no doubt.
It's not like he's okay. He's not. He's better than okay.
Right.
And he's a great addition, and he's unique. His style is unduplicatable because he is so unique. So, but again, all those same people are getting the opportunity to do good work and stand out. They're getting those chances. So, and I like that. I think that's going to be good. This pay-per-view from AEW coming up really should be intriguing to me. Anyway, I like some of the pairings. It just seems like, and I know we said this, it sounds like a broken record, but golly, Conrad, the one thing that we can guarantee, and you can't guarantee much in wrestling, but you can guarantee the fact that the AEW talents are going to far exceed their expectations on pay-per-view.
Yes.
So if you're a pay-per-view consumer, you're going to get your money's worth watching an AEW show, a premium live event, if you call it. That's a good term too, by the way.
Yes.
Premium live event, I think is good. So anyhow, there's a lot of good wrestling on the horizon. And at the end of the day, guys like you and me that are fans, that's all we want. Good wrestling.
Well, I know that you're a fan of that more rugged, rough and tumble style, and there's an
Mhm.
open challenge, I believe, right now from Jeff Cobb for the New Japan World Television Championship. Have you had a chance to see much of Jeff Cobb? It feels like he'd be right up your alley.
Yeah, he was one of my uh, original guys that when Tony and I talked about talent and bringing talent in, he was on my short list of guys that I would wanted to see at AEW. He's a classy guy. He's a professional. He's very talented. He can work with anybody and believably work with anybody. So I don't know what role he's going to have, if any, at the next AEW pay per view, but I hope he does have one because he always delivers. He's a unique guy. He reminds me a little bit of Dr. Death.
Wow.
Well, he's thick
Yes.
and he's got a strong stature, and he's a hell of a nice guy to be around. He may be nicer to be around than Doc was at certain times. When Doc was on one of his tuna diets, he hated the world. And so, but Jeff is a real, he's a nice man. He's a good, classy guy. And I hope that he does something with us because anytime you can add guys like that with that sort of demeanor into your locker room, you win. You win. Whether they win or not is irrelevant, but the company wins by doing business with people like Jeff Cobb. So hopefully he'll be a part of that show. I've always enjoyed being around him. He's a friendly guy. He's smart, good conversationalist, and Conrad, more importantly than anything, he's reliable. He's reliable. You ain't got to worry about him being late for work or being in a pissy mood or I'm getting beat tonight. Oh shit, that ain't the way it is to Jeff. So I like Jeff Cobb. I hope he's on the card because he can have great matches with just about anybody. And as I said, and maybe my flowers are too late or too early. I don't know, but he does remind me a little bit of Dr. Death as far as thick, amateur background, fundamentally sound. He's a great thrower. He's a great. His suplexes are money. So I'm a Jeff Cobb fan, obviously, and glad that he wants to do some business with AEW. We exchanged a couple of Twitter, or what's that called now? Twitter
X, but yeah,
X. Oh
it's
yeah,
Twitter for me and you forever. I mean, I still call it
yeah,
Twitter.
yeah. It is. You're right. Uh, I guess I should catch up, and be more contemporary. But he's really good. He's really good, and you can't get too many guys like that. That's like my campaign to hire Mick Foley back in the day. You knew that what kind of person he was and how he would contribute to the locker room, or at least how you thought he would, and it came to be true. So, but Jeff's that kind of guy. He adds to your locker room. He adds to the demeanor. He adds to the attitude, overall attitude. So we'll see. I'll keep my fingers crossed that he'll be in Long Island coming up not that long. It's 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, as we're talking, it's next weekend, so be sure to order Forbidden Door. And when you order Forbidden Door, you'll see Tony Storm, and she's going to be defending the AEW Women's Championship. I wanted to ask you what you thought of her presentation. I mean, I think it's one of the more creative pieces of business we've seen on television in a while. Just the whole act, with the way she carries herself, the way she delivers her promos, the look, the black and white. I mean, just the whole little faction she's created. I mean, she is just totally, you take a look at what she was doing in WWE and then you see what she's doing in AEW, and they could not be more different. And I really like it. I think because it's so different. What do you think of the timeless Tony Storm presentation?
I love it. I think she's mastered her, her skill set. We talked about doing a show on Goldust. Well, the reason Goldust got successful was that he owned his character, not literally, but figuratively. That character became him, and he developed it. He tried things that were risky, and he went along with the creative that was risky because it was so unique and new. But she's just been terrific. I can't think of anybody on anybody's roster that has developed their TV persona any more thoroughly
Yes.
than Tony Storm. She's a veteran. She knows she knows the ways of the wrestling world. She's a hell of a nice lady, and I just enjoy the hell out of talking to her and being around her. She's just a bright light in that respect, and very talented. Does she have the? Does she look like Tori Wilson? No, but nobody else does either. Uh, I say that in all kindness, but Tony Storm is a hell of a hand.
Yes.
She's psychologically sound. She's just terrific. So whatever she's doing, I'm watching, and I really think that AEW is onto something with her. She strengthens the women's division, and we're all still in the stages of development as far as the women are concerned, and it ebb and flows. Who gets hot, who doesn't, et cetera, et cetera. But she's really special, and I think has been a real pleasant surprise on the wrestling front. She's just and she's a good person. She deserves her flowers. She deserves her success, and I'm sure she'll provide that on pay-per-view coming up in a little over a week.
Can't wait to watch, and I'm excited to see Zack Sabre Jr. again. If you've never seen him, he's one of the better technical wrestlers in the sport, and he's going to be taking on Orange Cassidy over on the UFC side of things. They like a phrase that says, styles make fights. What do you think of Zack Sabre Jr., and what do you make of his matchup with Orange Cassidy coming up next weekend?
Orange is known to have great matches with just about anybody, Connie.
Yes.
I think he's very underrated when it's all said and done. And I might not have said that a year or so ago because he got disqualified in some people's mind because of his size. Now he showed us that his size is irrelevant. He's very good, and I think he and Zack Sabre Jr. will have a hell of an outing. I just believe that because for Zack Sabre, the stakes are really high because he has a chance to be a star in that match at that pay-per-view. And I think that's important. He has that the door's open. The plate's clean. Go do it. And so I think Zack Sabre Jr. is a star that hasn't been fully exposed yet. I think he's really good. So the booking of Zack Sabre Jr. and Orange Cassidy, it should provide a hell of an entertaining match. There's just no reason it shouldn't be good, really good.
No reason that we shouldn't give Jon Moxley some props too. I feel like he's probably been the ace of AEW since day one, and he's going to be defending the New Japan World title against Naito. I know you've seen a lot of both of these guys.
Yeah.
What do you expect in that one?
Physicality, stuff you can't see through, as they say. Naito is really good. He's a great heel or babyface, depending on your perspective where you're sitting. But I like Naito. I saw it when I was doing Access TV matches. He was a fixture. He was on a lot of TV, and I saw him work a lot, and I never saw him have a bad match. He always seemed to overcome his opponent's weaknesses and tweak his style to fit better with who he's dancing with. So Naito and Moxley have a chance to steal the show. I mean, they know each other, they've worked together, they understand each other's style, and I think that'll be a hell of a contest. To be honest with you, that's going to be that pay-per-view. The more we talk about it, just gets better and better. Naito and Moxley's a big time match.
Yeah, it is.
Big time match. So good for those guys. I'm happy for them.
We got to talk a little bit about who killed WCW, and I do want to get your take on that. But before I do, I just want to mention that right now, man, it is hotter than donut grease, as JR would say here in Alabama. And after a hard day, a lot of us, man, we just want to take a shower and relax. And I think that it's time that you elevate your hygiene routine with Cremo Body Wash. Cremo Body Wash is a rich lathering and has hydrating formulas with meticulously balanced, multi-layered fragrances for a superior shower experience. Their newest body wash makes a scent that is, well, it's going to feel like a more luxurious experience. How about that?
I like
Their
it.
bourbon vanilla body wash invigorates the senses with bold distiller spices, perfectly balanced with notes of rich Madagascar vanilla and aged oak to create a shower experience that meets even the highest standards. Now, we vet all the products that we talk about here on the program. And I have to admit, I was like, well, it's just body wash. What's the big deal? And I really enjoyed the shower. But when I got out of the shower, my wife was like, what was that? She was a big fan. She loved the way it smelled. I love the way it felt. It's unlike anything I've used before. I really encourage you to check this one out. They have worked with master perfumers to make sure that all of their body wash scents are meticulously blended and refined, and their hard work definitely shows. I mean, it feels like a high-end cologne, but it's in the shower. I'm such a big fan of this. I want you to try it. And I think if you really go after this bourbon vanilla scent, you're going to feel like a new man. I mean, that was my experience. I'm telling you, it was very noticeable, my wife's reaction to this smell.
Oh,
I want to encourage you to check these guys out right now. Cremo has distinct layered scents that actually evolve as you wash. So as you're getting clean and making you smell great at the same time, Cremo has a wide range of other grooming products for men, by the way. Not just body washes, but shaving creams, beard oils, shampoos, all in a variety of distinct and masculine scents. It's made for us, guys. Check it out. I want to mention that you can also find the new Cremo men's body wash at Walmart or even online at walmart.com. That's right. You can find Cremo's body wash in its brand new distinctive bourbon vanilla scent right at your local Walmart, or just go right now to walmart.com. You can find Cremo's body wash in this brand new distinctive bourbon flavor scent. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. Walmart or walmart.com. Again, that's Walmart or walmart.com. Bourbon vanilla. Man, how cool is that, dude? Like,
yeah, I like it.
When I was growing up, man, it was just,
Old Spice.
we can do better than that. Go check it
Yeah.
out. You're going to love it. And we want to thank Cremo for supporting the program here. Hey, listen, last week we got a lot of chatter online about some of the things we talked about. But
Right.
one conversation in particular really stuck out, and people were talking about it. And it was about the idea of Shane McMahon possibly working with AEW. And if you recall on the program, you said it's so crazy to think it might work, depending on how it was positioned or how it was introduced.
Right.
Shane called me the other day. He's called 2 or 3 times, which I really appreciate. He's always been sensitive in that respect. That's
Yeah.
only a question that Shane could answer. Shane and Tony being together, how would that work creatively? Heck, who knows? It might be great. And I saw a few fans, one in particular, who thought this was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard. And one guy in particular said, JR's fucking senile now. And I took issue with that.
Yeah, he is.
And I engaged a little bit with that.
Yeah.
And there was a friend of ours, I shouldn't say their name, but he went out of his way to text me and say, hey, that's not as crazy as you think. I know for sure that Shane McMahon has reached out to wrestlers on the AEW roster to at least hypothetically discuss the idea. Now, are we saying that's going to happen? No. But we are saying not that crazy of an idea.
It could happen.
It could happen, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It could happen. And how he could be utilized as a character on television, that's what I'm talking about, is viable. I mean, he's got great name identity. He's got people who recognize him. So, hell, I don't know. I would say it's a long shot, less than 50-50 that he would re-engage in pro wrestling. But I can't say that it's impossible because it isn't.
No.
So, and he's a good guy, and he still loves the business. He called while my last hospital stay. He stayed right on top of it, and he's a sensitive guy. He takes after his mother, and that's a good thing because she's a nice lady. He's just he's out there. He's out there. So, I mean, who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? Who'd have thunk it, as they say? But I don't think it's. I don't think it's anything that's un, un that we're unable to do. It can be done. It just depends on what he wants to do. Does he want to get back in the business or no? And time will tell as far as that's concerned. I'm not advocating it happen, yay or nay, but to say that it's impossible,
It's just
uh,
silly.
it would not be true. It is silly. Anything is possible in this
Yes.
crazy business.
Yes. If we've learned nothing else over the last few years, it's never say never.
That's right.
Speaking of never say never, we saw something kind of crazy happen at the end of Monday Night Raw this week. And I know we don't normally talk about current WWE stuff, but I do at least want to bring this up because they went way out there and they went really creative. And it was an interesting visual. And I know there's been a lot of talk and a lot of chatter online about it. I wanted to see what you thought about the return of, I guess, what used to be the Wyatt family, and now it's the Wyatt Six, SICKS. It looks like the former Bo Dallas is going to be Uncle Howdy, and we're getting one of the old Bludgeon brothers back. Big Red is there, and but what do you make of? Did you get a chance to see the segment, and what do you think of this over the top presentation that we saw?
I saw highlights of it. I did. I think it's going to be challenging to make it work. The Bray Wyatt cast a massive shadow, and he's amazingly talented. The new group doesn't have anybody that, to me, and I don't mean to be coarse or catty, but Bray Wyatt can't be replaced. So the more that WWE can make this new group different, the better off they'll be. But to try to emulate and to replicate, step by step, is going to be really challenging. That's like saying, well, we'll get another ball guy with a goatee and
Right.
that can do a stunner and he'll be Austin. Well, it don't work that way. It just does not work that way. So, I mean, hey, look, I'm all for those guys being successful and doing well. Again, it's all about the business and guys getting an opportunity to provide better for their families, which I'm all for. But I think it's going to be challenging.
We got to talk a little bit about the other news and notes from the week. But before we do, we should mention that as we're recording, last night was episode 3 of Who Killed WCW. And I think episode 1 just sort of laid the groundwork about, where WCW was when the whole acquisition happened from Jim Crockett Promotions and how they got up and going and started Nitro. And well, episode 2 was maybe, hey, essentially, did Eric Bischoff kill WCW? And episode 3, in my opinion, felt like, hey, did Vince Russo kill WCW? What'd you make of episode 3 last night, where it was heavily discussed, this Russo and WCW experiment?
I enjoyed the show. It was well edited, well produced. I'd encourage anybody that's a wrestling fan to go find it, check it out. I don't know that this question has an answer, a right answer. Who killed WCW? I don't know how you can anoint one or two people as your culprits of that assassination. Just don't. There may not be a right answer. I don't think it was Eric. He was surrounded by incompetence. I don't know if it was Bishop, or Russo, because he was in a tough spot. Look to the top of the food chain there, Brad Siegel and things like that. Just being able to make decisions, educated decisions, and that was hard for a businessman to do because you got to have product knowledge. And Brad Siegel, nice guy, but he did some things, and it was hard to determine where where his loyalties were to me. So I just don't know if there's a right answer, Connie, as to who killed and why do we have to have somebody? Why does somebody have to be appointed the executioner or whatever? I'm just we run to find fault, and that seems to be very topical nowadays. And I don't know that any one person was totally at fault. But as these episodes go on, people can make their own determination as to what they think happened and the culprit. It's just hard to put all that pressure on one person. And I haven't seen any one person yet on those shows that would convince me that that person, this entity, was at fault. I just haven't.
I can't wait for episode 4, and I hope you guys will check it out. I want you to support all this wrestling content so we can get more of it. It airs Tuesday nights on Vice, 10 Eastern, 9 Central, and Eric Bischoff and I go live on YouTube right after to discuss what we saw in that episode.
How did that go?
It was fantastic. You know, we've had a good time there, sort of recapping the shows and getting some live interactive questions. And you can join us next Tuesday night at 83weeks.com. But there was a question that came up last night that I thought was pretty good. And it was, hey, if the guys, the creators of Dark Side of the Ring, we know Jason and Evan very well, and they had a lot of success with Dark Side of the Ring, and then they span off and created Tales from the Territories. And now we've got this Who Killed WCW piece of business. Is there another story like the WCW story that could be like a mini series like this, 4 or 5 episodes, something like that? And if that topic is out there, Jim, what topic would you prefer that they try to tackle next?
Well, maybe the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era was the most successful period of time that I can think of off the top of my head regarding wrestling. All the stars that came out of that Attitude Era cocoon were impressive. The results spoke for themselves. It made millionaires out of wrestlers that just had hope. Then they had money because the combination of all the elements fit. So I think the Attitude Era, and my point might be to you, why do you think that the Attitude Era faded away? Why would it fade away when you had that talent roster that we had and how impressive they were in that world, in that presentation, in that feel? So the Attitude Era might be something that somebody could go back and research and play with. But there are others. There's an endless trail of stories that could be featured if one wanted to pursue them.
Do you think when you said, hey, what killed the Attitude Era? I mean, I know we're not necessarily saying it like that, but to me, it was Steve Austin turning heel and shaking Vince McMahon's hand at WrestleMania 17. I just don't think, I mean, people maybe who were younger, our younger listeners, it's hard to really explain just how over Stone Cold Steve Austin was. I mean, I remember going into local Walmarts, and as soon as you walk in, there had to be a dozen different variations of Stone Cold t-shirts. Right. I mean, it was unbelievable how mainstream it was and how fast it happened. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that again. And so to make him no longer a fan favorite and to quote unquote turn his back on the fans, it was, as Arn Anderson might say, like cutting the water off. I think that's probably the biggest thing I could think of as a fan. What would you say?
It didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't work. I've used this analogy before. That would be like in his heyday, casting a war movie and making John Wayne a Nazi. It just did not fit, and people were not going to accept it. They enjoyed the Stone Cold presentation immensely, all facets of it, and to try to make him a heel, I thought was an act of desperation. Let's do something different. We got to change. Why do we have to change? If it's still working, then that's the goal. It works. And Austin worked. His merch sales, I don't know how much his merch sales went down during that transition from babyface to heel. but I just thought it was ill advised, and I didn't like it. But I was an Austin fan. I was an Austin friend, still am. And if he was sitting right here in Norman, Oklahoma, I would tell him the same thing. I've told him that. So, but guys like to try things, and sometimes you try things for the sake of trying things, and that's not a good reason to change. So, Austin being a heel never worked for me.
Yeah.
And as you look back at now, Connie, in the last several years, where he's made his sporadic appearances on TV, it's always been as a babyface, and it's always worked. That tells me all I need to know.
I wanted to ask you something about Steve Austin because I saw something the other day that jumped off the page. It's one of my favorite Twitter follows, Andrew Dice Clay, and he posted a graphic that showed, I guess, a new piece of marketing that Steve Austin had pushed out for his beer. But he's got a beer now that's using 316. That seems to be sort of not available to him. The tweet says WWE now allowing Steve Austin to use the Austin 316 on his non-WWE projects. I recall he walked out in '04 because they wouldn't allow him to use what they have admitted about 1,000 times on DVDs that he came up with. Took them 20 years, but they've smartened up. And of course, we saw recently that, when The Rock came back and became a board member with TKO, he got back his IP. This is long overdue. Have you talked to Steve about him owning Austin 316?
Connie, when Steve and I talk, which is not as often as we both would like, it's not normally about that deep into the business.
Right.
It's almost like we both want to be, just let me up here on this deal.
Yeah.
Now, when football season starts, him being a major football fan, especially the college brand, we'll talk football more than anything else, pro or college. And, he's come to my home here in Norman. He stayed with Jan and I. I've taken him to OU games. He's a huge hit, I can tell you that. The kids loved it when he's on the sideline or he's around. But he's he's a hell of a guy that is more diverse socially than just talking about wrestling.
Yes.
Sometimes I think he'd rather not talk about it.
Yeah.
But I'm still a big Steve Austin fan, and his legacy is going to last forever and ever in the annals of pro wrestling, and as it should. Nobody impacted the business any stronger than him. I mean, he was the guy. So I've always been a Steve Austin advocate. Sometimes to maybe a little overkill on my end, because I believe in the character. I still believe in what he represented, and we were lucky to have him. And his injury and his overall health affected the end of the Attitude Era. He was the Attitude Era.
Yes.
He was the guy. I think we can all agree on that. And when he got hurt and he couldn't be 100%, and, injuries kept nipping him in the ass, it was hard. It was hard. When I was booking the house shows, the live events, or the premium, not the premium live events, but the regular live events, he was just special. I mean, he was a difference. When you could book a card, Connie, with Austin on it, and then even better yet with Rock on it, you drew money, and that was always the bottom line. Or let's draw money and pay these guys. So during those, I went back and looked at some data the other day that had the pay sheets, and even in these live events, the pay sheets reflected talents that were not in the main event making an enormous amount of money, because the ticket sale grosses, were outstanding. So he helped a lot of guys earn a lot of money. I can't remember the exact number, But there was a time uh, during that period that we had, I want to say, around 15 guys that made $1 million a year. That's hard to believe in pro wrestling. That's like a small professional sports franchise payroll, and a lot of that could be contributed to him. Rock to a little bit lesser degree because they came along at different times, and Austin had that head start. But I really believe that he was the difference maker, and his health kind of cut things off. It was sad because he'd earned all those accolades, and he was making great money. And more importantly, perhaps, Connie, he was making great money for everybody. The trickle down effect.
Sure.
So but he was responsible for a lot of new money coming into WWE at that time, and I'll always be grateful for that because he made me look good in booking. When you got Rock and Austin, and then you got all those great heels, Triple H and DX and all that stuff, and others, several others, then it's hard to miss. It's hard to look bad when when you're putting an ass every 18 inches.
Let's talk a little bit about another big time talent that we haven't spent a lot of time talking about recently because, well, frankly, we haven't seen a lot from him. Jeff Hardy appeared as a big surprise to close the TNA pay per view this past weekend. So his AEW contract is now expired. It's come out that he and his brother Matt are working on a per appearance deal with TNA. And just last night, Matt Hardy uploaded a great video with lots of clips from their career. And he wrote, "It's been a hell of a run, and we're not done yet." How would you like to see the Hardys wind down their in ring career? And I mean, if you were going to fantasy book that, what would make sense for you as a Hardy fan?
I would love to see a long program with the Hardys and the Young Bucks. Both have a lot in common, and I have great respect for both teams. And I know somebody's going to say, "Well, we've already done that." So what? So what? Create a new story. Create a new reason to wrestle. But I have all the respect in the world for the Hardys. I remember hiring those guys, $50 a day, or maybe they made 100 sometimes. But they worked for whatever was there because they were fans, and they believed in themselves that if given the right opportunities often enough, that they're going to get over, and they did get over. Jeff had the most charisma, and I'm not knocking Matt because Matt was the brains of the outfit, at least in my view. But I like them as a team. I think that's where they should stay. The single stuff is fine; they do a good job. But the Hardy Boys, Jeff and Matt together, to me, is your magic formula. They have chemistry, they have magic, and all I'll say is TNA's got to. I hope they use them right. If they do, then everybody's going to make some money. And at the end of the day, it's all about the money. I mean, let's be honest about it. It's pro wrestling. It's not amateur wrestling. They're not getting NIL money.
Right.
They're looking to sell tickets and earn money from the tickets sold that would justify their salary. So I'm a Hardy Boys fan. When these two kids came to me back in the day, they were teenagers, and they had a sewing machine, and they made their own gear, and all this fantasy stuff that sounds too much to believe wasn't too much to believe, Connie. It was they pulled it off, and then it's because they stuck with it. They ended up becoming viable members of the team, and I thought that was just great. I think that, and I'm a Hardy Boys supporter without question. Good guys, they both shot themselves in the feet a time or two, but we all have, and but they have their act together now. So I believe in what they're doing is staying together. I think Matt supports Jeff a great deal in a positive way. And Jeff's kind of that wild child. But he's also, I get asked all the time on social media about the match I called with Jeff and Undertaker. They had a classic match, and nobody would ever foresaw Undertaker and Jeff having a classic, and they did. Climb the ladder, kid, make yourself famous. Things like that came out of that match, and so I always appreciate talents that give me a canvas to paint a good picture on, and they did that. And that night with Taker and Jeff, they did it to a large degree, and they both and they delivered. As a new dance partner for Taker, and he had a blast. Young guy, smaller guy, 100 pounds lighter, but they kicked ass, and that was fun to call. It was fun to call. It was invigorating because Jeff Hardy had kind of surpassed Matt as the star of the Hardy family, and that's not knocking Matt whatsoever. A lot of what Jeff did was at Matt's encouragement, and so I like the Hardys. I hope they do well, and they should do well if they are used as a team and get involved in a meaningful team storyline. There's money there.
I'm curious from your perspective, why don't you think Jeff Hardy worked out in a bigger way for AEW? Like, he had so much success in WWE, he had so much success in TNA, and I know that Matt was all over AEW programming, but it doesn't feel like we saw nearly enough Jeff. Was that off the field stuff, or was it just too crowded? I mean, I know AEW has a super loaded talent roster, but it just feels like that guy was a merch machine everywhere he went, and we just didn't really see a lot of that in AEW.
It might have come down, Conrad, excuse me, to reliability.
Okay.
He had so many, I don't want to say false starts, but he had several chances to get his ball rolling and get back in the game. It might be that. Because some of his experiences that preceded him were not real complimentary. I remember talking to him, and I wanted to send him to rehab, and I told him that. I found it better when you're dealing with talent just to tell them the truth. Tell them the truth and let the cards fall where they may. And I believe that's how you do business with anybody. Tell them the truth and be upfront and let the chips fall where they fall. So I think maybe it was that, at least part of it. But there's no obvious reason that Jeff should not have been used more prominently. So I don't know the bottom line, but I think history and precedent had something to do with it.
Let's talk a little bit about some other news and notes that have happened over the last week. We saw the big Clash at the Castle main event. I think a lot of people went into that just assuming that Drew McIntyre was going to win the world title from Damian Priest. They had a heck of a match. It was the main event. It closed the show. They made the cool choice to start the evening with Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles. They had a barn burner, and ultimately AJ quit. But we got to see that killer instinct of Cody. But the real story was the main event. And the WWE production team did an excellent job with the way they shot the finish, where the referee slides in to make the count for Drew. And we can't really make out who the referee is, but he only counts 2 and then stops. And it was CM Punk wearing a referee shirt. And this is interesting booking, because CM Punk can't wrestle. He's not cleared to wrestle. He's had major surgery. He's still trying to rehab and get better. And this feud has been going on for months, and they've literally never been able to have a match. Right. By the time they have a match, it's going to be a main event, Drew and CM Punk. But after the pay-per-view was finished, a lot of the fans there live in the building were pretty upset and had some not so nice chants. They were frustrated and disappointed. And I've seen a lot of people online be critical of that finish. and think, man, you robbed the fans of what was right there in front of you. But I've also seen other people say, well, if they come back and they fix it next time, that you've got a reason to come back. And it reminded me a
Mm,
little bit of the one night only circumstance way back when in 1997, where the British Bulldog, he dropped the European Championship. Shawn Michaels beat him, and we
mm.
never got the payoff. I'm curious what you thought of not sending the fans home happy, but let's go the other way. Let's book some heat. What'd you think of that creative?
I didn't have a problem with it. I think heat's a big catalyst of drawing more money and television ratings. I I liked it. I like the emotions that it created. It didn't bother me a bit, Conrad. It didn't bother me a bit. Thought it was the right thing to do. Uh, we're just automatically thinking that geography should dictate the finish. And Drew being a Scotsman, and this event being in Scotland, the natural thing is, well, the hometown guy gets to go over, and it just doesn't always work. And I'm not saying you always go the other way. You don't always do anything. You do it when it's the right thing to do and it makes sense. So I didn't have a problem with it. I wasn't shocked that CM Punk was involved. That was a very smart use of him, as you pointed out, so accurately. He was, it was just a thing where you want to get Punk involved because he is close to coming back, from what I understand. I get text messages from him on a somewhat frequent basis because he's just checking on me to see how I'm feeling. He likes me and he respects me, and it's reciprocal. But I didn't have a problem with that finish. I thought it was good, and sometimes fans of this era don't know how to accept the heat, how to accept villains winning, or not being made happy, or being made whole. So you don't have to be happy about a finish if it's intriguing and we're talking, and you and I are talking about it,
Yeah.
for example. So no problem here with that deal. I thought it was strategic use of an injured wrestler who could not be involved in physicality, i.e., CM Punk, and we move on because that as soon as Punk is released, that's where they're going.
Right.
Punk and McIntyre, and two guys I like a lot. They're two stars. So and you can bet your ass they'll turn it up. They'll have some hellacious matches. There's no doubt about it when time comes. I miss CM Punk. I thought he was he contributed greatly to the AEW roster when he was with us. To be perfectly candid, I wish he still was. How do you not want a talent the level of CM Punk not still with your company? It just didn't work out. It was psychological. Just personality wise, just did not work out, and that's unfortunate. But I've seen that happen before. I remember when Junkyard Dog left Mid South. That was huge. That was the bell cow. Dog was the bell cow. He was the guy, and he left. And he left in a different way. He went through a different door to get out, but it still hurt the company at that time because he was so entrenched, so special, that what are we going to do now? Well, you replace him, you pick it up, and let Cowboy do the booking.
I wanted to ask you another thing about CM Punk. Just a couple of days ago, one half of the Insane Clown Posse, Violent J, posted a message that wasn't so kind to CM Punk. He said, F CM Punk for life. You wouldn't shake our hands in TNA, little bitch, and you clown on the only real friend you ever had in Colt Cabana, you bitch. And he went on and on and on. And I thought it was kind of out of left field. I mean, it felt like that was all old stuff. I mean, he even made reference to the fact that he shared a bank account with his mom before she passed. And Punk, what does that have to do with anything? And
I don't
why would
get
he
that.
bring that up? And
Explain that to me, Conrad. What is that?
well,
What's the significance of that statement?
way back when Punk did that presser after the AEW pay-per-view where he just sort of went off And then, of
Yeah.
course, we know what happened after that. But when all of that happened, he just started, verbal diatribe about Colt Cabana. And he made mention of the fact that Colt still shared a bank account with his mom. And,
Oh, okay.
but the idea is, a lot of sons still take care of their parents. I mean, I don't think that's that foreign of a
I wish I
concept,
had that opportunity.
right? I mean,
I wish I had that opportunity right now today, as I sit here.
I think you and I mean, this is understood between you and I, but whatever our moms needed, they got. Like,
Damn right, damn right. And
come
they
on.
still would.
Yes.
God bless her. She's not with us any longer. For me, you're lucky. Your mom and dad are still alive.
Yes.
And I'm sure you're very thankful for that, because
Yes.
they're getting at the age where things could change in a blink of an eye. And we don't want to think that, but the reality of it is that we should be grateful that we still have them. And
Absolutely.
I'm trying to, with my daughter Amanda's cannabis business there in Tulsa, is one way I'm trying to help my kids. My other daughter is a licensed physician assistant, and I support her and her family as best I can. College tuitions. I got two granddaughters that are going to be in nursing school soon. One's already in it. So I'm doing what I can to catch up, being a better dad than I was when I was on the road and doing weekly television, when I was always doing something. But it didn't have anything to do with them, which I regret.
I wanted to bring this up to you because I actually sat down with Violent J, who made that post on behalf of the Insane Clown Posse social media account, to say, "Hey man, what the hell? That's all old news." And he shared that he hadn't been watching wrestling and was catching up on all the stuff he missed for the past several years, and was defending his real life friend Scott Colton, who we know professionally as Colt Cabana,
Right.
and he just wanted to go to bat for him. So if anything, Violent J was just trying to be a good friend and defend his friends. But it does feel like this conversation just continues to persist.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get your take on that. Why do you think CM Punk is such a lightning rod? Like, that was years ago, but it still pisses people off today. Like, and I know he just discovered it, but he felt compelled, and it just feels like a lot of this stuff is old hat and it's time to move on.
I agree wholeheartedly. Move on. Phil's a very complex guy, and he doesn't mind sharing how he feels.
Right.
In a lot of ways, that's refreshing, because he's straightforward, and sometimes, in the eyes of some, to a fault. So I'm glad that he's the way that he is. You don't have to worry about how he feels,
Right.
And for me, he's always been a supporter of mine. He'd say, "Hey, I'm doing this on Dynamite, or I'm doing this on Collision, or wherever it may be. And are you going to call my match?" "Yeah." He said, "Well, I really want you to call my match." And that always makes an announcer feel good, when a top talent is supporting your efforts and encouraging your involvement in their presentation. So, but I have the world. I love Phil Brooks. I think he's a hell of a guy. He's very talented. He's still hungry. He's no spring chicken, but he can still work. And as soon as he's cleared medically, I'm sure we'll see the proof of that.
It's crazy to me because, we had CM Punk at StarCast several years ago, and he was 10 out of 10. He could not have been nicer to the fans, to our staff. I mean, it was just a great experience. And I know not everybody has had that experience. And sometimes we've got to separate the art from the artist. Where does CM Punk start and where does Phil Brooks end? But
Right.
I've had nothing but great experiences with both. And I think this ugliness, when it comes out, and maybe it shouldn't come out, maybe that's the issue. If you have some sort of circumstance or challenge or frustration, some sort of beef, as the kids might say, if that's behind closed doors, well, we never know about it. And maybe fans can form their own opinion, however. But when it goes public, boy, people just love the dirt, don't they?
The dirt. Oh my God. I love the dirt. Mr. Barnett, God bless him.
Well, I hate that it feels like people have a hard on for CM Punk, but you can have a hard on for pretty much anything when you go to bluechew.com. Let's talk about our sponsor today. If you haven't already tried it, what are you waiting for? Blue Chew is a day one sponsor here for JR and I on Grilling JR,
Yep.
and it's because it really works. And man, there's testimonials out there to prove how well it works for this broadcast. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers you the same active ingredient as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but it's in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. Now you can take these dudes anytime, day or night. So plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. And the process is simple, y'all. You sign up at bluechew.com, you consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within a few days. And here's the best part, it's all done online. That means no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversation, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, prepared and shipped directly to your door, all in a discreet package. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. So discover your options at bluechew.com. Let's chew it and do it, y'all. We got a special deal right now for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code JR at checkout. Just pay the $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com. The promo code is JR and you'll receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we want to thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast.
It works, ladies and gentlemen. I promise you, it works. And that's not tongue-in-cheek comedy. It's just it's a supplement, so to speak,
Yep.
that works. And I can't endorse it enough because it does work, and it's not a joke. So it's something you can try. The fact that you can chew them up and get them in your system a little quicker is always been a selling point for me. But Blue Chew's been a wonderful sponsor.
Yes.
They sponsored us here just about every week.
Yeah.
And we appreciate the business. We really do. And their support.
Support our sponsors. If you like our show, man, let's take care of those who take care of us. BlueChew.com. Right. Use that promo code. Save yourself some cash. Hey, let's talk a little bit about some other news and notes because you mentioned broadcasters just a minute ago, and Kevin Kelly was a guy you worked with in the WWF, and you worked with him in New Japan, and you certainly worked with him in AEW. And now it looks like he's, by and large, off of national television. He recently got together with Eric Bischoff, and they discussed some of his AEW experience. But I've never really spent any time picking your brain. What'd you think of Kevin Kelly as a broadcast partner?
Sometimes he made things a little bit more complicated than they were necessary, but he's a solid broadcaster. He's got good fundamental skills. He's paid his dues. He's done a good job wherever he's been, seemingly. You know, I enjoy working with him. Always prepared. He's like me. I don't know if I'm as good as I think I am. I don't know if he's as good as he thinks he is. But he's a good broadcaster, in my opinion. I think he does a good job. And it's too bad that it ended like it did. I don't really know, and I was there, which sounds like I'm passing the buck here. I don't know exactly what all happened. He obviously thought he should have been managed and a little bit differently than he was getting. So it's unfortunate it ended the way that it did for him there, because I thought, quite honestly, that he would be involved in AEW for a long period of time, and it just didn't work out that way, and that's always unfortunate, because I've been there. I've been in those positions where all of a sudden you don't have your spot, as Arn Anderson would say. You know, you lose your spot for whatever the reasons are, and as a broadcaster, the thing that we have to understand is that there's not that many opportunities as in that role.
Right.
So I hope I know he's doing some entrepreneurial things and trying to keep his name out there and earn a living. He's got a family, and I wish him on nothing but the best. A good guy, never had any problems with him. He always respected me and I him. So I hope that somewhere along the way and I'm sure that he will. He's open-minded. He's an entrepreneur, and I think somewhere along the way he's going to end up landing right back on his feet. I hope, anyway.
We got to mention another AEW broadcaster, Tony Schiavone. We're about a month away from Tony going into his very first Hall of Fame. He's going to go into the TNT Hall of Fame. He's winning the Gordon Soley Award. And that's an award that somehow, some way, you and I both have. I certainly do not deserve it, but I was the recipient of that award last year. But Tony told me last week on his podcast, What Happened When, he's going to have his kids introduce him into the Hall of Fame.
That'll take an hour. That's a lot of kids.
How happy are you for your old pal, Tony Schiavone, after all those years away from wrestling? He's been back in wrestling for about 5 years now on national television, and he's finally getting his just deserves, man. I mean, going into his first Hall of Fame, I'm pretty happy for Tony and his family.
Oh, me too. Gosh almighty. Well, you know, I'm going to get an award from the CAC for announcing. And the award is going to be named the Jim Ross Award.
Wow.
Which I feel kind of, I don't know, uncomfortable with. But in any event, I'm happy to receive it, and I appreciate the accolade and the honor. But that award was really meant for Tony. And as far as I'm concerned, the next award from CAC next year, pardon me, will be Tony Schiavone in that role. He deserves it. He's earned it. And I think the world of him. I'm glad he's back in the business. He adds to the business. His voice still cuts through the clutter. You know, if the lights are on in AEW, you can find Tony because he's always there. He always works hard, and he's always reliable. He's always right on the money. And so I'm very happy for him, and I think that's a great thing. That Gordon Soley thing. We all look up to Gordon.
Yes.
You know, so I'm proud for Tony on anything he receives. I still enjoy working with him immensely. We just don't get that opportunity as much as probably both would like. But we make the best out of the opportunities that are there. And he's just a sweetheart of a human being. Good man. Good man. I bet you don't have any trouble running him down and to do his work because he's reliable as hell.
Yes. Like clockwork every week.
Clockwork is a good way of putting it because he's always around. He's always available.
I want to mention, I don't know if you saw it, but our pals over at MidAtlanticGateway.com. Shout out to David Chappell and Dick Bourne. Dick's one of my better friends in the wrestling space. And MidAtlanticGateway.com is a great place to go relive all the good old days from Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. And when you think about Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, you probably think about the great Bob Caudle.
Absolutely.
They went to Bob's house, visited with Bob, and presented him with a tribute belt that was based on Reggie Park's classic U.S. title design made famous by Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard and others. And it was quite a belt. Instead of eagles on the main plate, there were microphones. And instead of it saying United States at the top, it said Bob Caudle. And right in the center, there's a silhouette of Bob, and it says the voice of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. The side plates have the old Mid-Atlantic logo and the JCP logo. You could see him just grinning ear to ear. He was honored by it. And I'm just glad Bob Caudle's still with us, man. And how cool is it that Mid-Atlantic Gateway went out of their way to honor and celebrate him in his own home like that?
Well, the guys at Mid-Atlantic Gateway are good people.
Yes.
They have a heart.
Yes.
And they should be recognized as well. I'll tell you that I never worked as a broadcaster with anybody that I like more than Bob Caudle. When I first went to work at JCP, I rode with Bob almost every week. So I got to know him very quickly. And that was a blessing. I love the man. He was always wonderful to me. You know, I come in to, and think about this. I came in, he's the voice of Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. He's the voice of the Carolinas, and there's no doubt about that, and nobody should dispute that. But the issue is that when I came in, he made me comfortable. I became the lead guy, and he never said one word, yay or nay, about it. He never had a problem with it whatsoever. And I've worked with a lot of guys that would have had issues in that respect because they got put down a notch in their estimation. Bob never looked at it that way. We were a team, and the team did things together. You know, he knew all the great places to eat along the territory, whether we were in Raleigh or anywhere else in the Carolinas. Bob had the little cafe that was just great, and but I love the guy. We are blessed he's still with us, and I saw those pictures online of him holding the belt, sitting in that chair, smiling, and it just warmed my heart. You don't meet people like Bob Caudle that often in your journey. So he just was some amazing guy, and I love being around him. I'd like to be around him. I wish we lived closer together because I'd certainly be around him more if I had the opportunity. But he's just a good human being, and young announcers our fans going back and looking at some of his work, Connie, is something I'd encourage. He was smooth, man. He was smooth, boy. He was smooth.
You could see him over on the Peacock. So pull up Peacock, WWE's there, and just watch any of the old Mid-Atlantic stuff. And he was truly the voice of Mid-Atlantic, and so many iconic performers came through there, and so many of our listeners grew up with him as the voice of their childhood. I mean, you just sort of followed in his footsteps, and we're just delighted that he's still here and that we got to see him celebrated. And I wanted to mention something else that was in that same line of thinking. I don't know if you saw this, but AEW has partnered with Reebok, and we know that they had the Young Buck pumps, and I actually picked up a pair of those. As a kid, man, that was the coolest shoe to have in school. My parents couldn't afford to have those shoes, and I never had a pair of pumps, and it was just one of those every year for Christmas. That's what I wanted, and we just couldn't make that happen. So now as an adult, when they did a wrestling version of the same shoe, I'm like, well, even if I'm not going to wear them, I got to have it just on general principle. So I picked up a pair. And I saw yesterday that they're actually doing a tribute shoe to the late Brody Lee. And I thought that was really cool. Dark Order inspired. It's got the purple on there and the Dark Order logo. A Brody Lee tribute shoe. How cool is that, man?
That's awesome. And what a great guy he was. He found his home in AEW. It's just unfortunate as heck that he got sick before he could enjoy the full ride. He had a hell of a talent. You know, Luke Harper back in the day was one of my favorites. And then when he came to AEW, I was ecstatic because I knew what we had in him. He was one of those guys where he's on your wish list of talents that you hope that you get a chance to work with. But he was just his facial expressions, his size, his athleticism, just was fantastic. I was going through my phone the other day, and I saw some pictures that somebody had taken with me and his Brody Jr. And I got a little teary eyed because the little boy's going to be raised without his father, and he's a massive wrestling fan. And it's when I do appearances, and I got several appearances coming up. Autograph appearances and meet and greet type things. That's always one of the questions I get. How did you like working with Brody Lee? And my answer is always consistent and the same and honest. I loved it. Big rugged guy. He's right down my alley. If I could design a heel, that'd be him. So he took great bumps and he fed comebacks, and he was great to work with in that respect. He was fun to talk to. He's always in a decent mood, a great mood, because he loved what he was doing. That's one of the great values that we have in this business is that when you see somebody that truly loves wrestling and they're making a living at it, it's heartwarming. So he's certainly missed. And I'm glad they're doing things like this so they can keep his memory alive. But he was a he was a hell of a hand for us in AEW, just a hell of a hand, and had some great matches. And he didn't see through his shit. He was solid. When he locked up with you, it wasn't like, two girls. And that's going to get me in trouble probably, but he was physical. And I just admired the hell out of him. And I wish he was still with us. I miss him.
Shout out to Brody and his whole family. He's got a lovely family, and they're a part of this wrestling family and community forever. I just know they're going to be associated with AEW until the wheels fall off, and
I agree.
I'm so thankful.
As they should, Connie.
Yeah,
as they should.
As silly
Someday
as
I
it
hope
is,
I'm around. I'm old enough, or I'm not too old that I can't call young Brody's one of his first match or something, because you know where he's headed. He's headed to the ring, and to be a AEW star. And I ain't telling you that can't happen, because it can happen if you believe it strongly enough and you work hard enough to that goal. It can happen, and I hope that it does happen for the little guy.
I love that, you guys continue to do your own tribute to Brody. Well, the way you open every show, it's Wednesday. You know what that means. Like, it's such a cool thing. I hope people will go support this shoe, and let's just celebrate the memory of Brody Lee a little more. And while we're at it, by the way, if you really want to have a great summer, can I recommend something I've been rocking on a regular basis? You know where I'm going. It's the all-purpose seasoning. JR, I've got my outdoor kitchen dialed in here.
Good.
I've been pretty fired up. This is the first time I've had a setup like this, and I could not wait to try your products on all the different grills. I got a little hibachi. I got like a Komodo big green egg deal. I got a pellet smoker.
Wow.
And what's common is, although I have 3 different grills, I got the same seasoning every time, and I got it from jrsbbq.com. That's where you can get JR's hot ass red sauce. You got 2 different types of barbecue sauce. You got the Chipotle ketchup, the main event mustard. But to me, it's all about the all-purpose seasoning. Business looks to be a booming at jrsbbq.com these days, Jim.
Yeah, it's doing good, Connie. Thanks for bringing it up. I appreciate everybody's support. We had a great Father's Day season on our website, jrsbbq.com, and we're selling a lot of signed books. I did yesterday. Stephen Link and I met here at my house, and I signed a bunch more. So, because I'm going to be spending a lot more time in Oklahoma, we're going to be able to keep up with that a lot better, more efficiently. So, the signed books are a great idea, I think. And so if you get a chance and you want to buy one of our new books, they'll come signed. You order them on our site. And then, we got appearances coming up. I got one coming up. I was looking here, July the 6th in Philly. July 6th in Philly is going to be a good one. Here's how you can tell you're getting old. On my calendar in July, I have my colonoscopy schedule. That's getting older. So, but I want to take care of my health. And I think that in my stage of life, that might be the last colonoscopy that I have to endure. I know one thing, it's a 2-day prep, which I wasn't prepared for. But it's going to help me stay alive longer, hopefully, and it'll be a good thing. So, if you want a signed book, they ship easy. They're manageable. It's a great gift idea, and they're signed. They're live signatures, so it's all good stuff. So I hope that there'll be something folks will just check out and strongly consider. Get you a book that's signed. And I enjoy the interaction with the fans. And then we have these appearances coming up where most of the time there'll be books available, and I can sign them a little bit more extensively. And I'm glad to do it. Just glad to do it. It's a fun book to read. You've experienced it. It's got all these short stories and different, I read the audible.com book portion of this presentation, and hardest thing I've ever done. Hardest thing I've ever done. And when I was finished, I felt so full of gratitude and so happy that we did it. And so anyway, it's one of those projects of love. It's more than likely the last book I'm going to write, and I hope that folks will take advantage of the signed component and enjoy the stories. It had stuff in it that I'd forgotten that we put in there. My boxing experience. Going to El Paso and doing a big time boxing event was really cool. But we talk about everything and all these significant moments. When you got 50 moments, you can pick out what you want to feature. And I love that. The concept of that book is just so entertaining. So check it out, folks, if you get a chance. I know I'm trying to sell books here. This is not a telethon, but I hope that you'll check it out and enjoy what you find.
Hey, and hopefully you find your way to battlegroundchampionshiprewrestling.net. That's where you can pick up tickets to go see JR live and in person on July 6th. They've got one heck of a day. Check this out. They're doing a show called Who Runs the World at 1 o'clock. And then from 4 to 7, they're doing the barbecue bash and meet and greet. And then they've got another show, United We Stand, at 8 o'clock. It is a full day. You can get more than your money's worth at battlegroundchampionshiprewrestling.net. JR is going to be there. Atsushi Onita is going to be there. Matt Cardona is going to be there. The Blue Meanie is going to be there, and so many more. And did I mention that it's at the famed former ECW arena? We call it the 2300 Arena. Tickets are on sale now. Battlegroundchampionshiprewrestling.net. See the voice of wrestling. Good old JR there. July 6th. That, believe it or not, is our pal Cassio Kid's birthday. How about that?
Wow. How about that?
Yeah. So we hope
good for him.
I don't know who's going to have a better day that day, you or him. I know we both love our cheesesteaks and we love visiting the famous ECW arena. Go see JR in person, battlegroundchampionshiprewrestling.net. Pick yourself up some sauce if you can't make it. And be sure, here's a little pro tip. If you go to jrsbbq.com, not only can you get the fabulous new book, but you can get some of the seasonings and sauces just in time to watch Forbidden Door next weekend on pay-per-view. JR is going to be there in New York. If you can't make it, do what I'm doing. Order it on pay-per-view. And I actually saw, I don't know if you saw this, Jim, but Triller TV has actually started archiving, and now they sell all of the historical AEW pay-per-views. You can actually buy annual packages. So you could get the 2019 shows, then you could get the 2020 shows, then you could get the 2021 shows, and so on and so forth, including last year's package, which had 8 pay-per-views for 2023. That's all available now. And what's great about Triller TV, which, if you're a longtime listener of the show, used to be called Fight TV. What's great about Fight, now Triller, is that when you order it, man, it's yours for life. You can watch stuff live or you can watch it in demand. So you've got unlimited replays. We both really believe in their platform and their technology. And if we've said anything on this show pretty consistently, it's that AEW always over delivers on pay-per-view. The idea that now fans can enjoy those from 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, it's awesome. Go right now to Triller TV and you can go ahead and pre-order Forbidden Door and take a look at the older stuff because we've got the older Forbidden Doors on there too. That's a heck of a deal, man. That wasn't readily available and now it is. Great call by both Triller and AEW.
Yeah, I agree. No doubt about it. Great products. We're not going to hide them. They're out there. And you should take advantage of that. So I'll be very pleased if you do, quite frankly, and you will too. It's good. You're acquiring a great product, and I believe that. I truly believe that. I don't think that anybody does pay-per-views better and more consistently than AEW. And I worked a lot of pay-per-views in my time, but it just seems like these young kids, and I call them young kids, they can't get enough of it. They're all motivated to steal the show. And I love that. No matter if they're going over or they're winning or losing, whatever it may be, if they're working with somebody they like or they don't like, whatever it may be, they deliver. And so that means that you're going to get more value for your hard-earned dollar that you invest in these AEW pay-per-views. It's it's fun as hell to go there and to work on them. And I encourage you to check it out because and this one's going to be interesting too. You know, we talked about Moxley and Naito. That's a huge match. It's a lot bigger than we've probably given it credit for being.
Yes.
That's a huge match. And they'll beat the hell out of each other. And they'll tell a great story. So it's all kinds of good stuff. And, you know, I like the development of Swerve Strickland. He's making a great champion.
Yes.
And he's physical and he can wrestle. I like the guy a lot. And I'm glad he's getting an opportunity, quite frankly. I was watching Who Killed WCW last night as we record this. And it was very moved by Booker T's scenario. The first black world champion is certainly deserved. And he was a great representative of the title and the brand and the whole 9 yards. So, and it's time we got past all that shit about the color of their skin. If they're qualified and they can wrestle and they represent the company well, then what else you need to know? What else is there to know? Oh, he's a black guy. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who really cares? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Well, we're not there now. We're way past that situation. So, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy than Booker T. You ever listen to Booker T's commentary on Tuesday nights?
Oh, shucky ducky. Yeah, I'm a big Booker T fan. I know that he's got his critics out there, but I like the man. I like his work. And in 1998, he was one of my absolute favorite wrestlers to watch. I know if I don't say something, we're both going to get blown up on social media. He was the first black champion in a while, but Ron Simmons was actually the first African-American heavyweight champion. So a little slip of the tongue there by JR, but you get the point. He's the first man rocking the big gold belt, and we're so happy for all of his success. And I don't think it can even be debated. He was the most decorated wrestler in WCW history. If you take a look at TV titles and US titles and world titles and tag titles, and then even of all the folks who jumped from WCW to the WWE, did anybody have the success that Booker T did? I don't believe so.
No, I don't think so either. He's and look, the Ron, I haven't forgotten the Ron Simmons thing. I'm not casting it off. I call that match. I was there in Baltimore. So yeah, I that was an honor to call that match. And it's a very memorable time in my career. And the audience reaction, that's still fun for me to go back and watch that match and watch maybe not just necessarily the two combatants, Vader and Ron, but the crowd was so entertaining. They were so surprised and they were so happy. My God, it was amazing. Those are the kind of matches that an announcer dreams of being able to call, quite honestly. It was good stuff. So I've been blessed with being able to call some of the most significant and pivotal matches in wrestling history, only because I was at the right place at the right time. It wasn't about me. I had a job that put me on the scene for some of these historic moments, and I'll always be grateful for that.
Well, we're grateful that you guys tune in to us every week here on Grilling JR. We greatly appreciate the support and hope that you will join us next week when we pick up where we left off as we talk about the fabulous story that is Dustin Rhodes and the WWE. We're going to be talking about Gold Dust. And if you've got questions, well, it's easy to ask us. We want you to go right now to grillingjr.com. That's where you'll find our YouTube. We'll be soliciting questions there. And in the meantime, if you've got questions about buying a house or refinancing to pay off some debt, maybe getting some cash you need to turn your house into your dream home with no money out of pocket, I can help at savewithconrad.com. As we've been recording this morning, I actually got another 5-star review from Campbellsville, Kentucky that says Diane was easy to work with and always available if I needed anything. What about over in Columbus, Ohio? Earlier in the week, we got another 5-star review. I can't say enough about the experience. It was near perfect. She was absolutely amazing. Her communication was amazing. Every question I had there, and there were a lot, was answered in the quickest manner every time. She couldn't have made the process better or more simple. If you're looking to get out of debt, if you're looking to reduce your monthly payments, if you'd like to snap your fingers and all your credit card debt go away, SaveWithConrad.com can help. We can also help you get out of that apartment and into a house. We're helping people get out of debt, retire on time early, help their kids, and at the same time, enjoy the dream, the American dream of home ownership. You see,
Right.
most people don't know that the word mortgage is actually Latin for pledge until death. Well, I'm not going to take a look at all the fun distractions that the national banks do. I want to ask you about your short term goals and your long term goals. How old do you want to be when you retire? Will you retire with a house payment? What's the plan there? Hey, when your kids go to college, do you want to saddle them with student loans or do you hope mom and dad can help out? Those are the type of conversations we have at SaveWithConrad.com. But here's what we don't do. We don't say no. So if for some reason you've had some credit challenges, maybe you just filed bankruptcy yesterday, still give us a call today. You need to know what to do in the future. We want to be your mortgage advisor for life. And you've got a friend in the mortgage business in me. So why not go ahead and get on the phone with us? It's no cost, no obligation. And if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. But we don't say no. We say not yet, but here's how. Let's get a plan with your pal Conrad at SaveWithConrad.com. You can call us toll free at 888-425-0105. Get a quick quote at SaveWithConrad.com or just send me an email. It's Conrad@SaveWithConrad.com. Let's save some money. And how about this? A summer break from house payments. No house payments in July or August. You're done until September at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 32416. Jim, I had a fun time talking about current events, but I can't wait to pick up where we left off about gold dust next week.
Yeah, Goldust is an intriguing topic, to say the least. And he's a great example of somebody that took ownership of their TV persona. Dustin added a tremendous amount to his presentation. And I look forward to talking about that. He was one of the more unique characters that I ever worked with. And, you know, the son of a gun is still going strong.
No doubt.
He has great matches. I still believe that his match with Cody, his brother, was one of the best matches, if not the best match that I called in AEW back in the day. That was just, they killed it. They killed it. And if you want to watch a great pro wrestling match that tells a great story, it has a lot of drama and realism, that's your match. I think it was, like I said, I always believe that was one of the best matches that I ever got to call between those two guys. They gave you extra effort and more passion than just about anybody you could find. That's how important that match was to those two guys. And, you know, to do it and in remembrance of the American dream was pretty damn cool.
We're going to be talking about all that and more right here next week on Grilling JR with the voice of professional wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross.
Thanks very much, folks, for being with us. We appreciate you. We love you. And I look forward to next week's program. Tell a friend about our show. You know, my agent, Barry Bloom, was telling me, he said, man, your numbers are holding up good. And that I appreciate. It's just a matter of, I feel warm about that. I feel good about that. And the days that I was sick and, you know, coming to Norman this last time and spending 4 or 5 days, wherever it was, in a damn hospital, I didn't expect that. But the feedback that I got on social media was so uplifting and heartwarming that I can't thank you guys enough. So I'm feeling good now. Looking forward to being in Long Island. I don't know what match I'm calling. It doesn't matter to me. It's not that I'm indifferent. I'm not indifferent. It just doesn't matter. I'm ready. And so it'll be fun. So I appreciate every opportunity that Tony Khan has provided me. And he's a special guy in that regard. He gets kicked a lot.
Yeah, he does.
And sometimes unnecessarily.
Agree.
You know, in my view. So anyway, nonetheless, Conrad, you did a great job today. Thanks for pulling me along, and thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you, and we'll see you right here next week.
So long, everybody.